Hi, in this video, we will talk about how the Netsurian Managed Threat Protection Service can detect the Log4j2 vulnerability called as Log4 shell. In a previous video, we explained how the Netsurian product EventTracker and the Secure Edge branch STO products are not vulnerable themselves to the Log4j2 vulnerability. But no doubt you have assets on your network that incorporate a vulnerable version of this library. It is a very popular, widely used library, and it is quite easily exploitable. And so it might be of interest to know how can the Netsurian solution actually assist you in identifying potentially vulnerable hosts. So we're going to talk about that. Of course, this vulnerability was disclosed on December 9th, and it allows for remote code execution and has been scored a 10 out of 10 in the common vulnerability scoring system because it is so widespread and so easily exploitable. The Managed Threat Protection Service spans both pre-breach as well as post-breach activities. So from a pre-breach perspective, before the incident can occur, we do offer prediction services, and this is primarily in this case through our vulnerability assessment services. Over the weekend, we updated the VAS service to be able to specifically detect Log4j, whether it's on a Linux host or on a Windows host. We're reaching out to you to see whether you want an out-of-band scan of your network if you subscribe to this service, such that you can identify compromised hosts and potentially remediate them. What the report looks like is something like this. This is what the report looks like when we run it. This is the vulnerability scanning report. In this particular case, we've identified 3 vulnerabilities, or other 3 machines that are vulnerable. One of them happens to be a Windows 2012 server and 2 happen to be Linux. Log4j, of course, supports both of these platforms. And you can see this is a vulnerable version. Anything below 2.15 is vulnerable. So here you'd get the specific identification, including what their IP addresses are. These 2 happen to be running off of Amazon images, but you can see exactly what the vulnerability is and what the remediation is for it. So from a prediction perspective, this is one way for you to get assistance from us. The next thing is prevention. Of course, if you're hosted by us in our data center, then we've implemented a web application firewall, and those kinds of exploits are blocked right there at the entrance and won't get through, and so you'll be quite safe. But should you be hosting a system yourself that has a vulnerable Log4j, you have a couple of choices. One is you could apply the -d no lookups equals true, such that you would prevent the vulnerability from getting exploited, as we explained in our previous video. Or if your application vendors have given you updates that incorporate the new Log4j library, which is 2.15, you could upgrade your applications, though that honestly is a longer road. What if you couldn't do either of these things and attacks are occurring or did occur back on December 9th? Well, if you subscribe to our ETIDS service, we updated checks. We have new signatures available in those detectors, which will tell you if you've got these kinds of attacks going on. So in my demo system, if I will go over to the incidents page, and over on tile, you can see that I have some snort IDS alerts here, and these IDS alerts will fire. Here, for example, is one that shows you that there is a possible Apache Log4j RCE attempt. And so one way of detection is if you subscribe to our ETIDS services, we updated it, and you can get this info right away. Of course, there are a number of other indicators of compromise that we have updated our threat intelligence platform with. It's called the EventTracker Threat Center. And they include some MD5 hashes, for example, of vulnerable applications. So here is a for instance, and if any of these run, why then the EventTracker sensor on your endpoint, if it's Windows, will detect it and shut that process down. So here you see an attempt by a UTC temp exe launching Java with this vulnerable version, 2.12, and it happens to be connecting to a remote address. But because this particular MD5 hash was on our list, why then we actually shut this thing down. Other indicators of compromise that we have updated include IP addresses. And so in that same example, because it was communicating to this IP address, which we know to be indulging in these log4 shell attacks, that's another way to have this have your detection, and then in this particular case, automatic remediation. If you happen to have a firewall implemented that already implements this, then it will do alerting, which we will also catch and inform you on. Here, for example, is a Fortinet firewall that is alerting that there are, log4j remote code execution, and here are the details of the actual event. So this is something that the service will catch as well. In addition to all of these, we have implemented a number of saved searches that specifically look for this particular problem. So here I am going to filter by the word CVE, and you can see that we have implemented, these saved searches. And this is what the SOC is using to go back and look at your data as of December 9th to see if there have been any attempts, and if so, you'd be contacted. If you're a self-serve customer, all of these things are available to you to implement and take advantage of. So as you can see, the EventTracker managed threat protection does in fact give you a variety of ways to detect the fact that you're being exploited, possibly with Log4j. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for your attention.